When, what, and from who did you learn about money and how to manage it? I would say when I was younger, I just learned, younger, probably, I don't know, 5 or 6, I learned, what money was and what it was used for, the basics of it. And then I would say, late middle school and early high school, I learned more about, financial planning. Um, did my family open talk about money? Yes, they did in a way. They talked about kind of their budgets for the year and how much they would spend, and then they talked about how they what they were going to save from all the leftover money. I have 5 siblings, so they had to plan, how much each of us were going to get each year from them. And also, my dad was really big into investing, so I learned a lot about the stock market and what he liked to invest in and what he got back from that, which I found really interesting. Um, what did you learn about money management from observing how finances were handled in your home? Well, because my parents were big into budgeting, I learned the importance of saving and how to plan for all of my siblings' futures. So our education and for buying cars and retirement and all of those big expenses that we all have. What responsibilities have you had for managing your money? Well, I've always had, since I was probably in first grade, 6 or 7 years old, I've always managed a savings account. So I would earn weekly allowances at home, and I would go to the bank with my parents and we put it in. So I always thought that was cool. And then now, I obviously still have my own savings and checking account, and I have to start worrying about taxes now, which I'm still a little confused about, but I'm learning. I'm learning about investing in the stock market, so my parents are kind of trying to get me on board on that. I like to try and save about 10% of each of my paychecks, so that's kind of a personal goal that I've been working on. But luckily, my parents kind of bill my bigger expenses, like my car payment, my phone, my tuition, my rent, so I don't have a lot of things to worry about, but I have small goals that I try to work my best on, even though it's not the easiest. What are your strongest skills related to money management? Your strongest skills. I think when I do want to save up for something, I can do that. Not necessarily something big, but I can set small goals to save for items that I wouldn't originally be able to afford, and I can understand that I can't afford something sometimes and I have to accept it. Where do I have room for improvement? I think there's always room for improvement on learning where to save. I personally want to start learning how to save for bigger things like a car when I graduate, and bigger things like that. What are your biggest worries about money? I think my biggest worries are just not saving my money correctly, so when I do have my own family, not being able to provide education for my kids and other things like that. So just learning how to invest properly to get the most from that. One successful experience and one not so successful experience. So not successful, when I got my first job and I got my first paycheck, I just did not understand saving, and I spent my paycheck literally like this, and I overdrafted my account, and I had to deal with that, so lesson learned there. And then a successful experience would be, I had a job last semester at Olive Garden, and I worked as well as being a full-time student. And I think I was just so busy that I was just saving so much and I wasn't spending. And one day I just looked at my balance and how everything was going in my statements, and I hadn't been spending any, and I'd saved so much. So I think just overall from those two experiences, kind of just being aware of your financial status and understanding what you can and what you can't afford, and that was probably my biggest lesson since I've been to college. And then overall, what I want to learn from this class, I think I want to learn mostly about budgeting, and I know as a college student that can be super tough, and also just learning to set more smaller goals to save money and start investing it for retirement or bigger things in my future. So yeah.